Have you ever wandered through the edges of your dreams and felt something watching gently from the woods? Not with fear, but with memory. Tonight, dear traveler, leave behind the noise of the waking world. Let the silence of the sleeping woods draw you inward, where elven lore breathes through moss and moonlight, and whispered tales curl through the air like threads of forgotten lullabies. Within this tale, a Grimoire of Dreams awaits, nestled beneath the roots of a sacred oak, sealed by time, opened only at twilight. Its pages do not simply tell stories. They remember them. You'll meet a star-blessed elf who listens to the voices of fallen stars, a blind lunar weaver who threads moonlight magic into dreams, a silver-antlered stag guarding the veil between worlds, and other guardians of the hidden realms, whose ethereal wisdom still drifts through the twilight realm waiting to be dreamt again. So close your eyes, breathe gently, and let this dream-bound journey carry you into a world of forgotten enchantments, stardust whispers, and timeless. Before we begin, if this kind of storytelling brings peace to your nights, consider subscribing to Mystical Sleep Tale. Many pass through without a trace, but by subscribing, you open a doorway into deeper dreams and help keep these legends alive. Now, lay still and listen. The forest is opening its pages. There is a forest, deep within the folds of forgotten realms, where twilight never ends, a place where the light forever hangs between silver and shadow, and the wind speaks in whispered tales older than stone. This enchanted forest, though unseen by most, is not truly hidden, only sleeping, cloaked beneath the delicate hush of time and dream. Its canopy of violet gold leaves filters the sky into slow-moving patterns, and its ground is woven from the breath of moss, moonlight, and the quiet footsteps of wandering souls. Here, folklore under stars is not remembered, it lives. In this forest, even the trees slumber, their trunks hollowed by centuries and filled with stardust whispers. The air carries the scent of ancient bark and forgotten blossoms, touched by the faint echo of a celestial veil stretched thin above. Nothing stirs hastily here. The animals glide. The dew does not fall, it lingers. And among the gnarled roots of a sacred oak, buried where moonbeams dare not reach, a Grimoire of Dreams waits in silence. It is not lost. It is merely dreaming, waiting for someone gentle enough to turn its pages. It was on such a night, one stitched with indigo mist and the song of night birds, that a traveler wandered into the sleeping woods. A quiet soul, nameless in legend, but not forgotten in fate. They walked with eyes full of stars and shoes stained by old mud and memory, drawn not by intention, but by intuition, as though a dream-bound journey had begun long before their first breath. They did not look for the mystical grimoire, but the forest knew, and the forest had already chosen. The Grimoire of Dreams was nestled beneath golden roots, veined with threads of light only visible in the gloaming. Moss covered its cover like velvet, and ivy clung to its spine like a promise. The traveler touched it not with urgency, but with awe, as one might touch a relic of their own soul. And as their fingers traced the faded sigil of the lunar weaver pressed into the leather, a low hum stirred in the air, like the awakening breath of something that had been waiting for centuries. As twilight deepened into that liminal hush between worlds, the grimoire stirred. Its cover sighed open of its own accord, not fully, but just enough. Inside, ink that shimmered and danced, words that moved gently like mist in moonlight. The pages did not tell stories. They remembered them. Elven legends, mythical stories, fragments of lives once lived, dreams once dreamt, and echoes of magic that still clung to the air like perfume. The traveler's heart ached, not from sorrow, but from recognition. One by one, leaves rustled above, forming a hush like a library breathing. The traveler sat beneath the canopy, the open book in their lap, and began to read the first tale, not aloud, for the forest did not need sound to listen. The words flowed like water across the dreamer's mind, and the veil between worlds then. The story rose not from the page, but from the air, from the traveler's pulse, from the ground itself. And thus began the unsealing of the Twilight Grimoire. The first story was not a story at all. It was a memory spun from silver threads of a lake that sang, a star that fell, the song that stitched reality into form. It spoke of a star-blessed elf, a spirit of the forest, and a moonlight magic that could mend the broken lullabies of lost time. The traveler did not understand everything, but they felt everything. As the story unfolded, leaves glowed softly above, the moss shifted beneath them, and the grimoire pulsed with quiet light, a heartbeat of the forest itself. In that moment, the traveler was no longer just a visitor. They had stepped into the twilight realm between ink and ether, between tale and truth. The grimoire had opened its first gate, and in doing so, had opened the traveler's heart to the hidden realms beyond time and breath. And as the light faded gently from the page, another story stirred behind the next, waiting, watching, ready to be dreamt. The page turned itself as if stirred by breath, not breeze, and upon its surface, ink unfurled into starlight. The traveler's eyes softened, their heartbeat slowing as the second tale emerged like mist across a still lake. The Grimoire of Dreams whispered of a night when the sky opened, its veil and stars fell like silver petals through the sleeping woods. From this celestial blessing, a child was born, not of blood, but of moonlight and longing. Her name was Illyrian, the star-blessed elf. Illyrian entered the world during the fall of the night's crown, a rare cosmic bloom, when the constellations rearranged themselves to reveal a forgotten song in the firmament. She did not cry, she sang, a soft hum, in tune with the ancient melody that had been carried across the sky since the first leaf fell from the first tree. Her hair shimmered like the edge of a comet, her eyes reflecting not the world round her, but the dreams of those who stood near. The forest guardians knew, even then, that she was not meant for one realm alone. She grew by the shores of the Mirror Lake, a hidden body of water that reflected not the sky above, but the fates below. Its surface never rippled unless touched by truth. Illyrian would kneel there each twilight, listening to the stardust whispers that floated down with the falling light, murmurs carried by spirits who had not yet forgotten the elven legends of old. These were not voices she could ignore. They were questions written in silence, prayers folded into light. Her gift was not in spells or battle, but in resonance. She could hear the longings of stars, the regrets of comets, the laughter trapped in forgotten lullabies. Her hands, when pressed to water, drew visions, not of what would be, but of what had been dream-bound and left behind. Many sought her wisdom, but few truly understood her burden. For to carry the echoes of magic is to walk forever between the now and the not yet. On one dusk-veiled evening, as the twilight realm stretched long shadows across the lake, Illyrian felt something change. The moonlight magic that had always danced so willingly along her fingertips grew still, as though pausing mid-breath. A star above her pulsed once, bright and urgent, and from it came a whisper not of question, but of plea. Something was breaking, a memory. Perhaps, or a border between hidden realms. She touched the water. It recoiled. From the depths of the lake rose an image she had never seen before, a forest not her own, but familiar in dream, a figure wrapped in sleep, a grimoire sealed with time. And then the image scattered, dissolving into silver leaves, as if the lake itself had run out of strength. Illyrian stood, the hem of her robe dark with starlight, her breath caught between the forest and the sky. She knew that a new path had opened, and it led beyond what even the elven lore could explain. So she wrapped herself in a veil woven from dusk, kissed by a single falling star. Not toward danger, not toward glory, but toward answer. She followed the sacred oak's call through tunnels of ivy and silence, where only spirit of the forest dared tread. Her steps made no sound, her presence left no trace, and yet the sleep-bound magic of the land stirred behind her, awakening as if in recognition. And though no bard ever sang of her end, the grimoire closed that page with a sigh. The kind a dream makes before fading, or a melody hums before becoming memory. The tale of Illyrian does not end. For every time a traveler hears a star humming in the dark, or finds their reflection whispering secrets back, they have heard her, the lunar weaver, the moonlight guide. The star-blessed elf whose story is etched not in stone, but in the soft fabric of the night. As the second story faded like mist at dawn, the Grimoire of Dreams fluttered once more, a soft sound like distant wind chimes stirred by memory. A new tale emerged, subtle as a breath, woven in hues of bronze and dusk blue. It told of a young elf named Thaler, whose soul had once been a song. Born in a grove kissed by fireflies and shadow, he was known not for words, but for his music, a flute-carved tune said to have been gifted by the spirit of the forest itself. His melodies could coax dew from stone and laughter from trees. But one day, the music stopped. No one knew why. Some whispered of a dream broken in sleep, others of a shadow in the light. But Thaler awoke one morning in the heart of the sleeping woods, his flute silent, his memory veil as if tucked behind the celestial veil. He could not remember his name, nor why the breeze no longer answered him. All he carried was a faint hum in his chest, not a song, but the ache of a song, a thread of ancient melody unraveling at the edge of silence. With bare feet and trembling breath, he wandered. The forest, though familiar, felt distant now, like a painting blurred by tears. Flowers did not turn toward him as they once did. Birds no longer joined in harmony. Yet somewhere deeper in the woods, past the silver antlers etched into bark and beneath branches that seemed to sigh with forgotten lullabies, he heard it, the faintest echo of his lost melody, carried not by voice but by wind. It lured him gently, like a dream drawing back a restless sleeper. He followed, barefoot on moss, eyes wide as moons. The sound led him to a clearing where no sun touched, only starlight filtered through webs of dew. There stood a tree unlike any other, massive and hollow, its trunk twisted like a slow exhale, its bark embedded with old runes and stardust whispers. This was no ordinary tree. It breathed, it remembered. The melody flowed from within its hollow heart, not played but living, a whispered tale of longing, woven from threads of elven lore and sorrow. As Thaler approached, the air thickened, not with fear, but with anticipation. His hand, trembling, reached toward the opening in the trunk. Inside, the darkness was warm, like the memory of a lullaby. And there, nestled in a bed of ancient leaves, lay a woodland flute, his own, though he did not know how he knew. He lifted it. The wood felt like home. It thrummed softly, as if awakening after a long dream. When he placed it to his lips, no note came, not yet. Instead, the tree shivered, and a low sigh rippled through the clearing. A form emerged from the roots, tall, translucent, with eyes like fallen guardians, forgotten by time, wrapped in a robe of moss and memory. It spoke not with words, but with presence. And Thaler understood. The melody had never been lost. It had been waiting. The guardian guided him into a trance-like state, where the melody unfolded inside him, not to be played, but to be remembered. He saw fragments, laughter by moonlight, woven crowns of leaves, the first time the forest called his name. The music was his soul, fractured by
When
grief.
he finally played
Now
the flute
healing
again,
by echo. The sound was not flawless, but true. It danced through the grove like starlight made sound. The forest stirred, flowers turned, and though Thaler's name did not return, his melody did, and that was enough. The tale closed gently, the page shimmering with pale gold, and the Grimoire of Dreams sighed once more. Somewhere beyond the clearing, a bird sang a single note of that same song, a reminder that sometimes a dream-bound journey begins not with a step, but with the memory of music once lost and now found again. Beneath the deepest boughs of the enchanted forest, where moonlight rarely touches the ground and every breath feels borrowed from another age, there are tales even the trees speak of only in sighs. One such whispered tale is that of Valerian, not a warrior, not a king, but a creature of stillness, a stag-dot ancient beyond reckoning. And upon his brow grew silver antlers, not merely bone, but living metal, light-struck and woven with the starlight of 1,000 nights. It said the spirit of the forest etched its wisdom into each gleaming branch. Few have seen Elarian, fewer still have followed, for he does not roam the waking paths. He treads between veils, where hidden realms brush the edge of ours, where trees forget they are trees and rivers hum lullabies only the Elven lore remembers. His hooves do not touch earth, they kiss it. His breath does not fog, it glows. And where he walks, the very fabric of reality thins, allowing glimpses of the twilight realm beyond. In one such tale, a child elf named Lyriel wandered from her grove, following a moth with wings shaped like crescent moons. The air was cool, thick with the scent of moss and faint jasmine, and her feet led her without thought, for the forest sometimes chooses the path before the heart is ready to walk it. She came upon a clearing vale in blue mist, and there, through the shimmer of the celestial veil, she saw him. Elarian. His presence was not loud. He did not glow like stories claimed. Instead, he stood utterly still, antlers crowned with drifting light, eyes deep as forgotten well. When he turned to her, she felt not fear but recognition, as if some small, hidden part of her, long dormant, had awakened and remembered its place in the world. Without thinking, she stepped forward, and the stag did not run. He simply turned and walked. She followed. They passed through places that did not exist moments before, arches of trees bent with reverence, streams running with mirrored stars, moss that whispered secrets as her toes brushed them. It was a dream-bound journey, but one lived fully awake. She knew without knowing that they were nearing a boundary, the very line where the veil between worlds thinned so delicately that thought itself became a lantern. Before them rose a gate of branches knotted with silver thread. Beyond it, a glow, not bright, but deep, like the warmth behind closed eyelids. Elarian paused. Lyriel hesitated, heart pounding. She had heard that only those with hearts unclouded, with sacred bonds untangled by fear, could pass. She stepped forward, and nothing stopped her. The gate parted like mist. What she found beyond was not a kingdom, but a hush, a stillness that sang. Trees taller than mountains, crystals humming low songs, spirits drifting like dreams, and at the center, a tree with leaves that shimmered between color and memory. The hidden realms were not meant to be claimed or ruled. They were meant to be remembered. And Elarian, with his silver antlers raised high, turned to her once more, then vanished into the wind. Lyriel returned with no proof, no tokens. Only a new stillness in her gaze, and the scent of dream moss clinging to her hair. The elders did not as dot they saw, for her voice, when she sang, trembled with the ethereal wisdom of a place few had ever touched. And the Grimoire of Dreams closed its page with reverence, for some journeys change not the world, but the soul, and those are the ones the forest remembers most. Somewhere beyond where roads forget their end, where stars drift lower to listen and the veil between worlds thins into threads of silver, lived an elf without sight, and yet she saw more than most. Her name was Moonlit, the weaver of moonlight. Her cottage rested at the edge of the sleeping woods, where no birds sang, yet the night itself hummed gently, as if spun from a loom only she could hear. Her fingers never stopped moving, even in sleep, threading the very essence of the moon into veils so fine they dissolved into dreams. She was born beneath an eclipse, when the celestial veil dimmed and a stillness settled across the enchanted forest. The elders had whispered of her birth as a sign a lunar weaver was rare, born only once every turning of the great stardust clock, blind from birth. Her eyes bore the soft hue of pearl, reflecting not light, but memory, when she spoke. Her voice was as gentle as velvet dipped in starlight, and when she wove, the forest listened. Each evening, as dusk kissed the trees and moonlight magic stretched across the canopy, Moonlit would draw thin strands of glowing thread from a bowl carved from stone and silence. Her fingers danced through the patterns not seen, but sensed, veils of protection, cloaks of peace, nets to catch the nightmares of the weary. These veils would drift upward like mist, covering sleepers across the forest and beyond, wrapping them in sacred bonds too soft for the waking world to name. But one night her fingers paused. A chill, subtle as regret, crept through the threads. Something was missing, not broken, but absent. A hole in the tapestry of dreams, where fear whispered unchecked. She touched the thread and felt it snap. The sound echoed within her like a memory she'd never lived. A dream-bound journey was unraveling somewhere far across the woods, and someone, or something, was slipping beyond the reach of rest. With no map but the rhythm of the loom and no guide but her own breath, Moonlit wrapped herself in one of her own veils and stepped into the night. The path bent round her, unseen but known. Each step sent soft pulses into the ground, red like braille beneath her feet. Shadows shifted, making way, recognizing her not as stranger, but as stitcher of peace. The hidden realms opened, not with grandeur, but with gentleness, like a curtain parting for a child to pass. She wandered through groves bathed in violet dusk, past rivers that murmured elven lore, into hollows where sleep clung to the bark of trees. At last, she found it, a clearing where no dreams grew, where the stars had gone silent. In the center stood a boy, pale, still, his soul tangled in a storm of forgotten sorrow. No monster to fight, no spell to cast, only a silence to mend. She sat beside him and began to weave. Thread by thread, she wrapped him in memory, not his own, but the sound of leaves falling, the warmth of fire shed, the hush of moss beneath bare feet. Slowly, his breath deepened, his shoulders eased, his eyes, once lost, closed. When he slept, she smiled and let the last thread fade into the wind. She did not speak. She never did. The dream itself would carry the story back. And when she returned to her cottage, she did not resume the loom. She simply opened her palms and watched new thread form on its own, luminous and alive, spun from gratitude and quiet joy. The Grimoire of Dreams turned its page with solemn grace, and across the forest that night, those who slept felt something shift, softer dreams, steadier breath, and a veil of light. Barely seen but deeply felt, wrapping them in the touch of the weaver of moonlight. In the heart of the sleeping woods, Where even the wind dared not disturb the silence, stood the sacred oak, vast and ancient beyond memory. Its trunk rose like a mountain of bark and breath, its roots twisted deep into the bones of the world. The leaves no longer rustled. They shimmered, each one holding the weight of dreams and time, waiting endlessly, for this was no ordinary tree. It was the resting place of the first circle, elven guardians who had surrendered their waking lives to become part of the forest itself. Long ago, in an age woven from moonlight and myth, they had chosen slumber over sorrow, retreating into the oak to preserve their ethereal wisdom while the realms above quaked and fractured. The forest wrapped them gently in its green lullaby, folding them into bark and breath. Since then, no voice had stirred them, no magic had touched them. They existed as forgotten enchantments, buried in the wood's stillness. But the Grimoire of Dreams had not forgotten, and on this night it stirred. The winds had changed, subtly at first. Shifting scents, new pollen on the breeze, the brittle hush of leaves hesitating. Then came the dreams. Elves across the hidden realms woke with fragments of images, a tree breathing, a low hum rising through soul, the soft creak of limbs stretching after centuries. The spirit of the forest was speaking again, its voice like a melody emerging from the roots, one note at a time. It was the traveler, still seated beside the grimoire, who first felt the tremor in the ground, not a quake, but a heartbeat. Slow, steady. The earth was remembering, and so was the oak. Its great trunk began to pulse faintly with golden light, like veins of sunlight threading through stone. The moss that had once blanketed its base now shifted, unveiling symbols carved by no blade, sigils only visible when the veil between worlds began to lift. The oak was awakening. From within, not with sound but with breath, came a resonance that passed through tree and soil, air and spirit. One by one, slumbering figures began to stir within its bark, their bodies translucent, their eyes still closed, yet glowing with the soft light of moonlight magic. They did not wake in haste. They listened. They remembered. The dream-bound journey they had chose, and so long ago had reached its turning. What had changed? Why now? The stories. The ones being read again. The Grimoire of Dreams, once sealed in root and memory, had been opened. And each life, each lesson, was a key turning quietly in the locks of the forest's deepest truth. The guardians were not being summoned. They were being invited. For magic does not answer to force. It responds to reverence, to remembrance, to those who speak its name softly through tears and time. And as the first of the elders opened her eyes, soft, green like forest fog, she smiled, not with surprise, but with recognition. Somewhere, far away but deeply connected, a traveler was reading their story. And that was enough. The oak would wake. The world would shift. Not with fire, but with roots. Not with conquest, but with the gentle return of elven lore to a world that had almost forgotten how to dream. The page turned slowly in the grimoire, as if the parchment itself bowed in reverence. And though the story continued, there was a hush in the air, a sacred silence. For when the forest itself begins to wake, even the stars pause. To listen, the air around the traveler had grown warmer, not from fire, but from memory. The Grimoire of Dreams rested open on their lap, its pages having softened with each tale, as though the parchment had grown more alive with every whispered legend. The forest, too, had changed. Leaves now shimmered faintly, attuned to the rhythm of the stories. The moss at their feet pulsed with soft light, echoing the cadence of the tales. And though no words had been spoken aloud, The spirit of the forest had listened to every syllable. With a breath that felt older than their own, the traveler turned the page again. But this time, there were no inked lines, no shimmering glyphs, just a blank surface, luminous and quiet, like the surface of still water before a falling star. They blinked slowly, and then, as if drawn by something deeper than thought, they placed their hand on the page. The grimoire responded, and from its silent parchment, a new tale began to emerge, one without title, yet deeply familiar. This tale began not in myth, but in presence. It spoke not of elves or sacred trees, but of a lone figure in the woods, a seeker drawn by something they could not name. It traced footsteps in dream moss, breaths caught in awe, eyes widened by wonder. The story mirrored the traveler's own journey, not in detail, but in essence. Every chapter they had read had been both a window and a mirror. The elven lore, the forgotten enchantments, the ethereal wisdom, all threads leading back to them. They realized, with a slow, blooming clarity, that the dream-bound journey had never been about observing. It had been about becoming. The sacred bonds formed with each tale had sewn themselves into their spirit, invisible but permanent, like ivy threading through ancient stone. They were now part of the forest's memory, and the forest, in turn, lived within them. The grimoire had not been telling stories. It had been awakening one. Round them, the sleeping woods remained hushed, reverent. But the silence no longer felt empty. It felt full of all the whispered tales, of all the spirits still listening, of magic now resting not in the book, but in the traveler's heart. A wind stirred, carrying the scent of leaf and lullaby. Somewhere in the branches above, a silver feather drifted downward, catching the soft light like the echo of a goodbye. The traveler stood slowly, their hands brushing the final page one last time. The Grimoire of Dreams glowed softly, then closed, not with finality, but with peace. The moss curled gently round it once more, the roots folding like fingers round a treasure that no longer needed to be held so tightly. It would wait now for the next soul, the next seeker, the next dreamer. As they walked away, the forest did not bid them farewell. It accompanied them in rustling branches, in the rhythm of their breath, in the soft glow that lingered behind their eyes. They were not leaving the story. They were carrying it forward, into new lands, new nights, new hearts ready to be stirred by starlight and silence. And in the space the traveler left behind, a leaf turned, a root stretched, a dream stirred. For the last page of a grimoire is never truly the end, only the beginning of a new whispered tale. Long after the traveler's footsteps had faded into the moss, the sleeping woods exhaled a sigh so soft it barely stirred a single leaf. The forest was still again, not in silence, but in presence. For every story told, every whispered tale awakened by the turning of the Grimoire of Dreams had rippled outward like a stone cast into a pool of stars. Though the book now slumbered beneath its golden roots, its magic did not. It lingered in the trees, in the wind, in the breath of the night itself. Somewhere, in another part of the world, someone might dream of silver antlers or a flute's forgotten melody. They may wake without knowing why their heart feels heavier with wonder. They may pause at twilight and feel the veil between sleep and waking bend just enough for a stardust whisper to reach them. These are not coincidences. They are echoes, quiet traces of a tale that has not ended, but waits in the folds of imagination. The elven lore that filled the grimoire was never meant to be bound by ink. It lives best when scattered, caught on the edge of thought, Whispered into campfires, folded into lullabies, the hidden realms are not places found on maps. They unfold only for those who remember how to see with more than their eyes, who feel stories brush against them like wind in tall grass. For these dreamers, the forest will always part its veil. Some say the spirit of the forest walks the borderlands even now, pausing beside children who hum to the stars, or elders who plant trees with trembling hands. Others claim that the lunar weaver still spins, her threads visible only when a heart begins to heal. And some believe that, in the moment before sleep, a sliver of the Grimoire of Dreams opens for each soul, offering not a tale to be read, but a story to be remembered. The forest is eternal, not because it cannot die, but because it is reborn each time a tale is shared. Every dream-bound journey, every moment of ethereal wisdom offered in stillness, becomes a seed in the soil of wonder. And when someone listens with more than ears, when they let a story wrap around them like nightfall, they become part of it too. They become guardians of the tale. So let the night deepen now. Let your breath soften. Let the veil between worlds thin just enough for you to glimpse the shimmer of a path that winds through trees that remember your name. You do not need to walk it tonight. It is enough to know it's there, that in the hush of the dark, you are never truly alone. The Grimoire of Dreams sleeps once more beneath its sacred oak, but its presence lingers. In the flutter of leaves, the hush of moss, the way the moonlight pools at your window like a memory returning. This tale may end, but your dreams are your dreams. They're the ink that will write the next page. So rest now, dear traveler of twilight. Let the forest keep watch. Let the stars cradle you gently. And know that the dream continues, forever unfolding, forever waiting. If this tale touched something quiet inside you, perhaps a hidden place where stardust whispers still echo, or a memory not yours but deeply familiar, know that you've just walked alongside the forest. Dream. Tell me in the comments, which story stirred your soul the most? Was it the Moonlight Weaver, the silver-antlered stag, the lost melody waiting in a hollow tree, or the final breath of the Grimoire of Dreams closing with your heartbeat? And if your heart longs for more whispered tales, more hidden realms, more enchanted sleep, click now on the next story appearing on your screen. If tonight's journey calmed your spirit, the next one will carry you even deeper into the dreamscape, with stardust and soft dreams, mystical sleep tales,